What family secret was finally spilled in your family? I started having problems with my teeth. Spontaneous abscesses that resulted in multiple root canals. My dentist did some looking into what the cause might be and found some really odd abnormalities with my incisors, roots and nerves, so he sent out requests for help to a couple of professors he knew in the field. When my next appointment came up, he was really quiet for a bit before verbally stumbling about it. Turns out that what was happening with my teeth was a classic sign of inbreeding, and he was super uncomfortable giving me the news. I brought it up to my mom and she just was like, "Oh, well, yeah, didn't you know?" What the F? Of course I didn't know. Turns out that not very far back in the family tree, several of my relatives decided that it was a good idea to get married to one another, and no one bothered to mention it ever. The small town where I live is 85% my relatives. No joke, I hadn't even met all of them. That's how many there are. One thing you caught your child doing that you wish you hadn't seen. My daughter has always been a very sweet girl, not the type to get in trouble or anything. So when I walked in on her doing this, I was very surprised. It was like it was a different kid. I came home from work one day to a horrendous smell. Following my nose to the kids' bathroom, I saw my daughter, then maybe 9, with a Barbie doll. Barbie had no clothes on, and her hair had been chopped off. My daughter was holding Barbie by her little neck over the sink, and had a lighter at Barbie's foot. "Talk," my daughter screamed, as Barbie's foot melted into the sink. "I told you to talk." My first thought was that my daughter should not have had access to a lighter, so I asked her where she got it. "Oh, it was with Daddy's cigarettes," she told me, sweet as could be. "What are you doing with Barbie?" I asked her, trying to keep my voice calm. My little daughter's eyes hardened and she nearly snarled, "She won't give up enemy secrets, so I have to force them out of her." This was out of character for my daughter, and we were not a household that condoned torture, under any circumstances, so that really took me by surprise. "Okay, honey, can you maybe find a way to torture Barbie that won't release toxic fumes?" My daughter thought about it for a moment. "Sure," she cheerfully told me. "And honey, please give me the lighter." She handed it right over. To this day, I don't know what secrets a plastic doll might have held, or what methods were next employed, although I did find a plastic arm on the floor some time later. My daughter did not grow up to be a serial killer or to work for an intelligence agency, but rather, for non-profit arts organizations. She opposes torture and thinks that all people, including prisoners, should be treated with dignity. She is very kind to people and animals. I have never witnessed any cruelty, except for that one incident, which is still a bit alarming to remember. The most random sexual encounter you've ever had. I was driving home in the rain after a night at my favorite barcade when I saw an attractive woman dressed in the typical college girl party dress walking all by herself on the street, arms crossed, no jacket. I swing around and ask if she's okay. She looks but ignores me as she crosses the street towards the gas station. I circle around again and pull in front of her, telling her that I work for the local newspaper, so she gets in my car soaked and bawling her eyes out. She told me her story. Her friends left her at the bar, she lost her cell phone, didn't have her purse and couldn't find where she parked. She was somewhat disoriented, but I told her I would drive her to her friend's house, which turned out to be 40 minutes away, since I couldn't find where she said she had parked and no one she called on my phone would answer. On the ride there, I got her food and water to sober her up. Being her knight in shining armor for the night, she told me she had an argument with her boyfriend a few days ago and that she was very grateful for everything I did for her. Me being stupid, I didn't catch the hint and said it was okay and that I just wanted her to be safe. She repeated what she said, but this time with a much hotter voice, took my hand off the wheel and proceeded to slide it up her dress. Well, I got that hint, and I proceeded to pull over and bang the crap out of her in the back seat of my car. While going at it, she told me she's on birth control and wanted it as deep as I could shoot. Me, still being a bit buzzed, happily obliged and finished twice inside to her pleasure, as she just wanted to forget about all her problems for a bit. After getting back on the road and getting close to her friend's house, she had me pull over up the street away from the house. Turns out, it was her boyfriend's house all along, and the truth was he left her there at the bar after their argument. She gave me a kiss goodbye and admitted she was not on birth control in the first place.
Am I the a-hole for divorcing my husband because he made fun of my weight? My husband and I have been married for 3 years now, together for 5. Our marriage isn't perfect, but we make it work. We both were fairly in shape when we first got together, but I gained a lot of weight when we had our kid and haven't since then. We are all Indians and it's somewhat acceptable to pull each other's legs. Mostly our family does it and there isn't any malicious intent. So my husband routinely teases me about my weight gain, but I know he loves me and I try not to take it too personally. Even I tease him about how long he takes in the shower and how obsessed he is with styling himself in front of a mirror as a guy. My husband has quite the following on Instagram. He usually posts a lot of reels and it's usually harmless and fun stuff. I was scrolling through Instagram and saw a reel about me, how much he loves me and all. I thought that was sweet. Immediately afterwards, I saw another one. This one was also about me. It was a picture from 5 years ago versus pictures now of both of us, with a background voiceover saying, "Before the wedding, my responsibility was for 55 kilograms, now it is 75 kilograms and it keeps on increasing." This was followed by a cackling sound. I don't know what happened, but a switch in me flipped. I felt humiliated and ashamed of myself in a way I had never felt before. I felt anger and hurt at my husband for something that was normal ribbing for both of us. My husband was away on a work trip, so I didn't contact him. I went through some Reddit advice for similar situations and most people advised serving divorce papers, so should I go ahead with it? Cut to present. I left divorce papers on his nightstand and went to my friend's house 2 days ago. The entire family, including him and my parents, have been hurling insults at me for bringing shame to their family. They told me there's no concept of divorce in our culture and I should just keep my mouth shut on these feminist things and come home to tend to my family because as a wife and a mother, that's what I'm supposed to do. They say that nobody will marry me because I am trying to be a divorcee. My husband said that he didn't think I'd snap at him like that and thought this warrants a conversation if it really hurts so bad.
What's the most horrific act committed by someone you know personally? Guy I went to school with was real calm, very smart, and everyone loved him. He was a gentle person from what I remember. He had lost his mom a couple years before this. She was a nurse and they found her dead in a hospital room during her shift. Unknown causes. Our senior year of high school. Dude is a championship wrestler, dominating his grades and just doing good. He lived with his dad who was a police officer for years and years. At lunch one day he left school and came back. Everything was normal and the day was finished out. His dad did not show up for work that evening, and the police department sent someone to go knock on his door. They found the house ransacked and his dad lying in bed with a single gunshot wound to the head, deceased. Later that night they called my grandmother in for questioning because she cleaned their house once a week. Not much later than that, the guy I went to school with broke down and confessed that he had come home on lunch to ask for money, and he and his dad got in an argument. His dad laid down like normal for his shift, and he took his dad's service pistol and shot him. And after realizing what he'd done, he'd freaked out and turned the house upside down to make it look like a robbery. Then went and finished the day at school to try to make it seem like he had no clue what had happened.
What's the saddest card decline moment you've seen? Not a card, but cash. I was 8, and Dad was trying to buy enough groceries to get us through the week. Hot dogs, ramen, loaf bread, and mustard for $21.97. I still remember the amount. Dad had $18.78. Period. An older gentleman behind us offered to pay, but my dad said that's okay. He took off the mustard and paid for the items. Plain hot dogs. In the parking lot, the man stopped my dad and asked why he was so proud that he couldn't accept help. My dad told him that if we don't earn it, then we don't deserve it. The man said fair enough, but I need someone young enough to help an old man repair the roof on my horse barn. You interested? I spent the next week sleeping in a hammock with a beautiful Palomino horse that would put her head over me. Gussie was her name. My dad still does work for that horse farm, and he sold my dad the hilltop because it wasn't good for horse racing, where our camper sits now. Thank you, Mr. Garland, for giving an awesome dad a castle for his little princess.